Hello everyone, hope all of you are doing well. This week I'm going to talk about two games, both from English Premier League, Manchester City Newcastle and Tottenham Manchester United games. Both were entertaining games but also interesting, especially regarding the intentions of the winning teams in final third. Both Manchester City and Tottenham used interesting ideas to create overloads in central zones, which was the key in their box entries and chance creation. Let's start with Manchester City Newcastle game. Last season, in one of his press conferences, Guardiola said, "The people say, how do you want to play? Tell me how the opponent is going to defend me or attack me. So if you want to understand how they built up, how they progressed, how they created chances, we must understand what Newcastle tried when they didn't have possession." As you all know, Newcastle are a very aggressive, physical, high-pressing team, maybe currently the best pressing team in EPL. Eddie Howe wants his team to close inner channels, push opponents into wider areas and trap them there. To do this, he uses a narrow first line of pressure with number of players equal to the number of opponent players at the center. Force the opponent to play towards one side and with the help of the fullbacks and the ball side central midfielder, trap the opponent near the touchline. We know Manchester City prefers starting the play with 4 players in the first line, including Ederson. Against Ederson and Diaz at the center, Newcastle used 2 players. Isak initiating the press and forcing City to play wide, and Almiron guiding the ball further wider areas. Having predicted that, Guardiola came up with a nice plan that put Gordon and Burn in difficult situations. In deep build-ups, Akanji inverted from the left wing to create a line of 3 players with Rodri and Kovacic. Maybe we can call this a triple pivot. This forced Newcastle's mid-3, Tonali, Guimaraes and Joelinton to lock on their opponent in the center. Trippier was on Grealish as expected. However, at the right wing, Guardiola didn't use his traditional wide winger. He used Foden as his central attacking midfielder and provided width with Walker. This meant as City moved the ball to the left side, Gordon started to be between Diaz and Walker and Burn between Walker and Foden. By knowing this, Manchester City forced to maximize the distance between these players, and this helped City enormously to escape from press by finding Walker available at right wing or Foden or Alvarez at the center. As he explained after the game, Guardiola wanted to control the game with low tempo. He admitted they would have had no chance against Newcastle if they had been forced for a more open transitional game. So, to control the game, City didn't prefer to attack Newcastle directly when they broke the opponent press. Instead, they preferred to move as a team and move the opponent to the mid and low blocks gradually. Newcastle usually use a 4-5-1 mid block in this kind of situations, and it was the same against City as well. Still, they stay narrow, try to push opponent wide. If opponent plays backwards, don't hesitate to trigger the aggressive pressure. However, this didn't cause so much problem for City, as Rodri read the game so well in finding open players while he was under pressure. For example here, he understands Newcastle are using so many players at high press and plays a one-touch long ball. Or here, when City was forced to play backwards, he saw the advantage over opponent's backline. Or another one here, a back pass from Guardiola triggers Newcastle's press, but Rodri with one-touch ball plays towards the overload City having over the opponent backline. This was great, but what impressed me even more was this plan in final third. City used a very asymmetric structure when they were in Newcastle's half, but they were still very well structured, and the reason of the asymmetry was only to create more positional advantages for their attackers. We saw numerous times Foden and Alvarez, 2 attacking midfielders on the same side, overloading the same half space while leaving the far half space completely empty. This approach was to use this duo in most effective way. For Foden to maximize his chance to receive the ball between the lines, and for Alvarez to find channels within the opponent's last line and attack there. By keeping Rodri, Akanji and Kovacic at the center of the pitch as the triple pivots, City most of the times forced Newcastle's central midfielder to match 1v1 with them. Walker and Grealish staying wider attracted the fullbacks, of course Haaland at the tip, with at least one center back on him, meaning there are possibilities to create 2v1 with Foden and Alvarez over opponent's center back at dangerous locations. And to maximize this possibility, as I said, City placed Foden and Alvarez on the same half space if the ball is at a wider position. The opposite fullback couldn't follow the far attacking midfielder because of the wide player's position. In these situations, Foden stayed between the lines while Alvarez attacked the channels. This put Newcastle centre-backs in very difficult situations. Eventually, City's winning goal came from the combination of all these micro situations. First, a back pass from Diaz triggered Newcastle press. Rodri dropped deep and found the free man quickly, Kovacic in this case. As City progressed toward the right side, Foden and Alvarez created a 2v1 over Botman, which helped Foden to receive the ball between the lines and then Alvarez to find a channel, and as you know, this ended with the goal. As a small remark, teams playing positional football are usually considered having rigid, symmetric structures regardless of what opponents try or where the ball is. This is a wrong conception about positional play. In fact, positional play is about the self-organization of the team at each micro situation of the game. Players use position, body orientation at these mini scenarios to communicate with each other and create advantages against opponents. That was exactly what City did in the final third. They were asymmetric, but they were structured, and this helped Foden and Alvarez create chances at the final third. Now let's move on to the second game of the week. Tottenham versus Manchester United. It was a really entertaining game. We witnessed a total of 39 shots, almost one shot per 2 minutes. Both teams had clear plans at different phases of the games. Both coaches were aware of opponents' weaknesses at specific sub-phases of the game and targeted to exploit those. As you probably know, Postecoglou likes using his fullbacks extremely inverted, narrow, and quite high in possession. In a minute we will see how this structure helped this team to create chances in final third. However, if Spurs lose possession during their progress or try to progress at the mid-block, then there are some huge gaps for the opponent to use in counter-attacks. And we all know United is one of the best teams in EPL when we talk about counter-attacks and offensive transitions. We saw United's idea of 1v1 matching in high press with wingers versus narrow fullbacks, central midfielders versus central midfielders, and fullbacks versus wingers, while keeping +1 at the back and pressing the front three with two players worked well. As the ball moved towards one side, United were locking in 1v1s, leaving opposite central midfielder as the intermediate player, and this approach resulted in some possession regains for them at very dangerous situations. And United could also create chances out of these situations and could have scored and received a penalty. Spurs tried positional rotations, specifically between Udogie and Maddison, but United in high press was doing a good job with communication, and transferring the man coverage didn't allow so much space in the already squeezed area. As this also didn't work very well, Spurs started widening the ball side half, with the fullbacks started moving wider, central midfielders dropped deeper in the space, and behind them even Richarlison offered support. This didn't completely solve problems, but at least offered a safer way to move the ball to United's half, and Spurs could pass this hard phase in first 35 minutes without any damage. As Spurs could start moving the ball to United's final third more comfortably, we started to see the advantages of using these very inverted, very narrow fullbacks. When United dropped the lower blocks, they continued defending with a man-oriented zonal marking. Wingers or Bruno Fernandes stayed on Tottenham fullbacks, Casemiro and Mount on central midfielders, fullbacks on wingers. As wingers stayed wide and Richarlison pinned the near-sided centre-back, a channel opened up. When the central midfielder tried using this channel, Casemiro and Mount have the familiarity with the situation to follow their man. However, once the fullback attempted to run into this channel, their markers, the wingers or sometimes Bruno Fernandes, usually couldn't follow, or even they followed, then they forgot them in the following events. The player running to the channel was changing due to positional rotations, but this late runner, being originally marked by the wingers or Bruno, could find space whenever he attempted to make vertical runs between United fullback and centre-back. And these put United fullbacks in difficult situations as well. Should they jump on the winger or stay close to the half space? This hesitation ended up with Tottenham's goal, and after that the second one came when they jumped on the winger and Tottenham's fullback ran into the space. Apart from the goal, this approach helped Tottenham to create many chances in the game, especially in the second half. It was certainly very effective, and I believe it will be something that is going to force Tottenham's opponents to stay very passive and compact when they are pushed to lower zones. United was a bit hesitant, but at the same time they wanted to stay aggressive, and that created problems for them when Spurs overloaded the half spaces. Eventually, both teams we covered targeted to overload the half spaces against their opponents with positional ideas but in different ways. It was nice to see their intentions in possession directly resulted in all the goals we watched in these games. Structure doesn't win you games directly, but it can be chosen to take advantages of your players' superiorities or your opponent's weaknesses. Manchester City and Tottenham gave good examples of how advantages and dominance can be created by using smart structures. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you liked my video, please don't forget to push the like button and subscribe my channel. Take care.